Hello and welcome to the third episode of BugSpeaks podcast. I have with me Kumar as usual, and we are going to talk on the impact or the role of microbiome in various diseases. So, Kumar, let's start with gastroenterology, as gastroenterology people understand is the lowest hanging fruit with respect to the microbiome, especially the gut microbiome. So, share some thoughts on the role of the microbiome in gastroenterology or diseases related to the intestine.
So even in our journey, I think the first clinical field that we entered into was gastroenterology. I'll talk about the trials that we did, the clinical studies that we did over there. But firstly, I mean, it's diseases like irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, constipation. Anytime you're feeling like you're having ulcers, acidity, bloating, all of that, and the gut microbiome plays a very strong role in any of these diseases. Of late, there has also been a lot of evidence that is now coming, which shows that colorectal cancer also has a link to the gut microbiome. So the first clinical study that we did, which also gave us a lot of confidence in what we're doing, was we took with the help of a hospital who were kind enough to partner with us way back then when we were nobody in this field. We took cohorts in IBS, ulcerative colitis, and constipation, and we did a before and after gut microbiome test, as well as with the microbiome test, gave suggestions on nutrition and the kind of probiotics and prebiotics that need to be given. And we conducted the study. I think we got really good results in the study, and um, the one small thing that was a little annoying is the hospital took care of the publication, so which probably didn't get us a good impact factor journal. But overall, I think we were very happy with the study. It was not only the result that we were happy with, but also it proved to us that we were doing the right things. We were going in the right direction. One of the reasons why this was important was when we first did, I think my sample must have been the first sample ever to be done in India. And when we first did the gut microbiome profile of an individual, it was so different from the Western public data that we usually see that we thought we were doing something wrong. For the longest period, we were not confident about our data. And in the clinical study, when we did it, and there was good efficacy, 14 out of the 15 patients responded with really positive feedback. The last patient, I think there was a little bit of adherence problem, which impacted issues, compliance issue with impacted the thing, which gave us really good confidence about what we were doing. And that's the first study that we did. But post that study, we also collaborated with though he's known to be the father of gastroenterology in India. I think he's the one who introduced colonoscopy in India, and he's held at a very high regard. So we started working with a doctor. He's a Padma Shri award-winning doctor. And when the first test was okay, but when he started giving us repeat tests, and he used to personally call us and tell us how it's impacting his patients, and these are patients that he was not able to cure for about 5-6 years, but now have found a way to cure them. That was heartening. But in general, I think gastroenterology, the gut microbiome plays a huge role. It has a direct impact, both the in the formation of the disease, in the progression of the disease, as well as in the cure of the disease as well. I think it has a huge role. Lastly, we are getting a lot of samples for a couple of studies in colorectal cancer. Eagerly waiting for the data to come through. This, I think, for the first time we'll be able to show what the gut microbiome signature would be like in colorectal patients below a certain age.
Correct.
So in young adults, when it happens, what is happening, how the gut microbiome is influencing it, I think that'll come out. But in general, I think gut microbiome and gastroenterology, there's a huge role in interplay between the two. If you could tell us something about oncology there.
Yeah, see, oncology, uh, it's something that was there in our mind, if you remember, from the day one. Gastroenterology was the first stepping stone, so to speak, when we stepped into the disease areas. But oncology has always been in our minds. And there are two aspects, Kumar, that I think the audience should know about the microbiome's role in oncology. I think 5 years back, the reports that started coming out on the impact of the microbiome on oncology was also on how the new age treatment regimens, such as immunocheckpoint inhibitors, um, they have an impact on the patients based on the microbiome profile of the patient. So people showed, in fact, that patients who responded to these immunocheckpoint inhibitors like CTLA4 inhibitor or PD1 inhibitors, they had a different microbiome profile as compared to the ones who were non-responders. So that goes to show that how much these microbiota residing in the gut are playing a role in the disease therapeutics. Now, that was just the beginning, I guess. And as you mentioned about colorectal cancer, people now know that in 30% of the colorectal cancer patients, there's a bacteria called Fusobacteria nucleatum, which has been found to be associated with colorectal cancer. And people have also shown the mechanism of action. Like one of the proteins that it secretes causes DNA damage and hence can lead to cancer state. And it will be interesting to see our data, whether we find similar kind of signatures of not only F nucleatum but any other microorganisms that might be playing a role in the Indian context. Because we eat different, genetics is different, so these do play a role. So on oncology, one of the major steps that we have taken, because we are talking about microbiome and we are the pioneers in this domain in Asia, we did a clinical trial. We have started doing a clinical trial on oncology also. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do a trial in oncology patients was to see the impact of change of gut microbiota in the quality of life of oncology patients. Now, one of our USPs in the report is the personalized nutritional recommendations. And as we know that the microbiota can be modulated by nutrition. So the thought behind this trial that we have started in collaboration with AIMS Raipur is to see if the food that is being recommended based on a person's gut microbiota profile can change the quality of life of that individual during the therapy and post therapy. And in doing so, we will also like to see if the change in the microbiota profile brings about a difference in terms of treatment efficacy. So that would be our secondary endpoint. So again, my fingers are crossed. Our first patient has been recruited as we speak. Hopefully, by the end of this year, all the recruitments will be done, and the trial will go smoothly. By mid of next year, we hope to publish this data if the data comes out favorable. If not, also we will learn. See, in science, there are no failures. Either we don't succeed or we learn. So we will learn. But I strongly feel that we will see a difference in the quality of life because of two reasons. One, because cancer in general causes dysbiosis. So dysbiosis, for our audience, dysbiosis is basically a term used to denote a disbalance between the good and the bad microorganisms in that ecosystem. So the cancer generally is known to cause dysbiosis. And as we discussed, food plays an important role to modulate the microbiota, and hence there's a chance that the dysbiosis can be reduced by modulating the microbiota. through food. And the second is the treatment. The treatment also causes, because the treatment is quite harsh. The chemotherapeutic agents are quite harsh, and sometimes, many times, antibiotics are also prescribed along with these agents. So these all impact the gut microbiota in a negative way. So the thought is that if our nutritional recommendation, which is based on microbiome science, if that can bring back the imbalances and hence bring back, some of the, or bring down some of the side effects of the disease and the treatment therein. So that's where we stand in terms of oncology. And I think, science like this, if it helps the patient in not only getting better but also improving the quality of life, because some of these treatments are so harsh that the patient might get better but his quality of life becomes really bad. So if we can impact that in that way also, it will be a big bonus for the society in general. So that's where I think we are in terms of oncology. And microbiome science in the next few years will come out much more stronger in areas like oncology, and we will be part of that bandwagon for sure. uh, so moving from the oncology that we were discussing various aspects, we also want to touch upon a very very interesting topic, but not that prominently talked about, that is reproductive health, both women and men. If you can shed some light on the role of the microbiome there, and take us forward.
Uh, I'm glad you mentioned both men and women in reproductive health, because I think a lot of concentration goes into in the women's microbiome, but there's also the male's gut microbiome that plays a role. So in reproductive health, I'll break it into different times where gut microbiome plays a huge role. The first one is in fertility. Okay, so just I mean, there's growing cases of infertility in India, and one of the biggest causes for that is the imbalance of the gut microbiome. We don't understand why
Yeah.
the infertility is taking place, because there's an imbalance or dysbiosis in the microbiome, but there is clear correlations and studies that have been shown that when the gut is in imbalanced state, the fertility rate goes down drastically. So just by rebalancing the microbiome, will just increase fertility itself. Then during reproduction, during the 9 months of pregnancy, a good pregnancy is actually dictated by how good the gut microbiome is.
Right.
But here's where the science is very interesting. The microbiome is usually not very, it's transient, but it doesn't change very quickly. That's in a usual life journey. I mean, it's a very slow transition that happens. But during pregnancy, you see clear changes that happens, and sometimes correcting the gut microbiome when you're pregnant is difficult because the changes are happening so rapidly. But when fertilization happens and pregnancy start, if the gut microbiome is good, then during the entire journey of pregnancy, in general, it is considered to be more healthy, and chances of miscarriages are reduced drastically. There has also been multiple studies which show that the gut microbiome of the mother impacts the gut microbiome of the offspring.
Yes.
An unhealthy microbiome of the mother also translates into an unhealthy microbiome of the offspring. It's not too drastic. I mean, can be corrected for the offspring as the person goes, but it's a good seed to have.
Yes.
So it's not only the genetics that are passed on from the mother. It's also the bacteria that is coming from the mother as well. So taking care of your gut microbiome is very important, which is why worldwide, not only in India, worldwide, if you look at it, there every culture has certain foods to eat and certain foods to avoid
Correct.
during pregnancy. And now we are beginning to understand maybe that has to do a little bit with the microbiome as well. Now, talking about the male's gut microbiome and the role that it plays, though there are multiple studies that are shown that the quality of the sperm is actually dependent on the male's gut microbiome. Again, it's where is the connection? How is the connection? Why is bacteria and funguses playing a role in sperm in the sperm condition motility? All of that is, it remains unknown, but there's definite correlation that is being done. One of the trials that we are planning to do, this is in collaboration with a group of gynecologists, two other companies coming together, doing I mean, right now the number is about 600 patients that we are talking about, where we're looking at the gut microbiome and the vaginal microbiome of individuals, and looking. So these are high risk, where in vitro fertilization is the only way to go about. So we're looking at the fertility success and where gut microbiome plays a role. So hopefully we should be able to start the study by early next year.
Okay.
But this is an interesting area of huge impact. I mean, business is one side, all of that is one side, but just
Societal impact.
societal impact, the amount of emotion that goes into reproductive stages. I think it's very, very important that we figure out how the gut microbiome plays a role, and also the vaginal microbiome also plays a role, and see what we can do to improve that.
Yes, of course.
Next, Dave, your favorite topic. Oh yes, if we could talk about the gut-brain axis.
Kumar, so this is something again much less talked about in general, the topic that we are discussing, which is mental health. And there are a lot of unmet medical needs in mental health diseases, right? The problem with mental health starts with the science itself, because it's brain, it's a very difficult organ to decipher. And there are ethical issues also. You cannot start working on a human brain when the human is alive, right? So there are a lot of challenges working in that space. But as you know, India is now the depression capital of the world also, along with the diabetes capital. So we need to look at the new paradigm to paradigms to look at this particular ailment, if I can use that word, both depression and anxiety, which is taking the youth of the world in a major way. And we read about suicides, we read about some crazy stuff happening all over the media. It's all because the mental health has gone for a toss. And that's where I think the microbiome also plays a very, very important role. In fact, when I mean a general example which everyone has gone through, um, before your presentation or before you are about to speak, there are butterflies in the stomach. And this word butterflies in the stomach basically shows how the gut and the brain is connected, right? And the major thing, recently that happened was COVID-19. And in COVID-19, we found a lot of people had mental issues, mainly because of the disease and also the conditions that were there overall. There was a very gloomy kind of a condition, right? People were dying all around and there were restrictions all around, and that created a huge impact. In fact, I wrote a paper, as you know, which was published in Frontiers in Neuroscience, about how we can use the gut microbiome based nutrition to improve the overall mental health well-being of individuals across the world. And I'm happy to say that many clinical trials started post those research publications, and many of them were successful also. Now, coming back to the impact of the gut microbiota, gut-brain axis. So there's a very interesting nerve that innervates our intestinal or the system, which comes from the brain. It's called the vagus nerve. Now, there are afferent signals which go from the gastrointestinal tract, and it basically gives in signals to the brain. A very interesting experiment was conducted where people found that a certain probiotic improves anxiety and depression conditions. Okay. uh, but when they cut the vagus nerve, then the probiotic lost its ability to ameliorate that disease. So that goes to show, although it's a physical nerve, and the probiotic is a bacteria in this case, which is somewhere in the intestine, it is somehow sending some signal through afferent way to the vagus nerve, which is impacting the brain. And this is just one example, Kumar. So there has been multiple examples of how these probiotics, mostly lactobacilli genus and bifidobacteria genus, people have used these in combination, different strains, of course, and they have seen in trials after trials that they impact the depression and the anxiety conditions in a positive manner. Of course, we are miles away from finding out the mechanisms and the real things, but microbiome is playing a role, right? And I think one of the trials that we will soon conduct would be in this domain, and hopefully with some of our own products. If not, we will also like to look at our personalized recommendations and how they impact the overall mental well-being. So yeah, so this is something, a domain, and as we started off also saying that there are a lot of unmet medical needs, right? So if a person is depressed, there are no biomarkers to suggest or diagnose that a person is depressed. I mean, there are certain questionnaire that a person fills up, and the psychiatrist evaluates that person and comes to a conclusion that the person is depressed. So gut microbiome can play a role there, where we can come up with certain microbial signatures, because it has been proven, shown in various animal model systems and also humans, that the gut microbiota is different in major depressive disease individuals versus normal individuals. Same in anxiety individuals with anxiety versus normal human beings. So I think this can be a major thing. Also at the therapeutic level, I think there's a lot of unmet needs are there. The current therapeutic agents, the SSRIs, the SNRIs, the MAO inhibitors and all those things, they have their drawbacks, they have their side effects. So I think the microbiota, the psychobiotics, the new term that people have now come up with, can and will play a very important role in this domain. So from, because we are talking about the gut and the gut brain axis, I think one of the major disease areas that is seeing a upswing in this last decade or so is autism. And we how many parents have been calling us to find out solutions for autism for their kids. So please share your insights on the autism part of it and our journey in that domain as well.
At any point of time that we'd actually get into autism. But somehow missed reading about autism and gut microbiome in the initial years. When we were always talking about gut-brain axis, I think we were talking about things like depression, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, those kind of things. The autism never struck us as much. Till, like you rightly mentioned, it was actually the parents who educated us that autism plays a huge autism. Please do something in autism. And I've gone to many talks now where I've heard people talking about how the right kind of diet had helped
Yes.
children with autism.
It reversed autism actually in a lot of
cases, which is surprising, right? I mean, I didn't even think autism could be reversed.
Correct.
And so then we developed we developed something for autism. The other thing that was challenging for autism is that the child's microbiome, gut microbiome, is continuously developing till they reach the age of about 8 or 9 or thereabouts. I mean, only then it starts looking more like a neural microbiome. So it's a constant change till that point of time. So how do you kind of say whether it's at a good level or a bad level? So that took us a little bit of time to understand. But we are seeing some sizable numbers, first of all, and secondly, the feedback that we're getting from all the doctors is pretty phenomenal. Two things are very, very heartening when you listen to all the stories that are coming about. One is the aggressive behavior kind of starts coming down. Oh, you rebalance the gut, and the aggressive behavior of the children starts coming down. The second thing, I think this is the thing that parents are almost tearful when they are talking to us, is the social behavior improves. They start communicating with a lot more people than the children are usually communicating with. So it's very heartening to listen to it. At the same time, autism is a spectrum. It's not in all cases it can be reversed. Parents are very anxious. I mean, it is also, we feel the burden of wanting to solve every case that we get, and we have to do a lot more studies. We have to also, any researchers listening to this podcast, encouraging all of you all to do many more studies in this space, because there is a societal need for this, and we need to understand this much better. And I think it's paramount, and it's most important that we get this done. But going from autism to something that affects almost all of us, especially here in India, can you talk about chronic diseases, lifestyle diseases, and the background?
Yeah, you touched upon this very important aspect, which is chronic disease. Again, India is the diabetes capital of the world. It's now a proven thing that the gut microbiota, and we are talking mostly about gut microbiota, but we will also talk about the other microbiota and their impact. But gut microbiota for sure has a direct role, or if I may use that word, in many of these chronic diseases. And the chronic diseases that we are seeing are mostly lifestyle diseases, right? I can give you my example. I mean, recently, I'm also a biohacker. We're a small one, but yes. So my HbA1c was a bit high, and I decided to, take fiber, increase my fiber content, add omega-3 fatty acid, and I had done my gut microbiome test before, so I knew what kind of food I have to take and what kind of food I have to avoid. So that kind of also supported my thing, and I've of course started to change my lifestyle, and doing so, my HbA1c level has come down to normal. It was shade above normal, but now it is absolutely back to normal. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the gut plays a very important role in chronic diseases, especially type 2 diabetes. We have tons and tons of patients who have type 2 diabetes, who have hypertension, who have metabolic syndrome, who have NFLD, now called MFLD, which is a fatty liver kind of a disease, and so on and so forth, right? And uh, I must touch upon the trial that we did, Kumar, because for the audience who probably would not have heard about a trial in diabetes where we reversed the HbA1c in conjunction with the treatments that were given to diabetes patients, just on the basis of the nutritional recommendation that we provided. So let me give a brief about the trial that we conducted. We published it last year, 2024, in a peer-reviewed journal called PeerJ. So what we did was we basically took two cohorts of diabetic patients, and because ethically we could not stop their diabetic medicines, so they were asked to continue with their diabetic medicines, and they were upwards of HbA1c of 8 and above. And in one cohort, the test cohort, the intervention cohort, we did their gut microbiome test, and based on their test, as our BugSpeaks test provides, we give them a nutritional recommendation, and they were asked to follow the nutrition recommendation for 3 months. After that, when we looked at the data, we found that their HbA1c had gone down by 20% as compared to the control. Not only that, their inflammation biomarkers had improved. Not only that, their hypertensive parameters had improved considerably, which was not there in the other cohort. So this was a proof of concept trial which we conducted first time in India, if not India, at least in Asia, I can say, where we showed that modulating the gut microbiota by food using the personalized gut microbiota profile of an individual can help reduce, the HbA1c level in type 2 diabetic patients and other associated parameters. So this was our kind of contribution, be in this deep science, knowledge-based ecosystem to show to the world. And more than anyone else, how difficult it is to conduct a clinical trial, that too by a startup like ours, with minimal funding, and we pulled it off. And as we speak, we are doing that oncology trial as well. So chronic disease and microbiome, they have a link, and we have proven it by showing the efficacy of our test in this context. And since we have been speaking more about the gut microbiome, I think we should also touch upon the oral microbiome and its related association with various diseases. So, Kumar, if you can shed some light for our audience.
So, never really thought that the oral cavity is also filled with microbes, and there are good microbes in the oral cavity too. So this was again a new area and a new learning that happened. So the oral microbiome can be done in two ways. I mean, maybe we should do a long episode just on oral microbiome, but just to briefly touch upon, I mean, you can take the saliva as a sample and look at all the microbes that are there and understand what's there in the oral cavity. Or you can take the subgingival plaque, and that will give you a much more nuanced role of what are the microbes that are there in the oral cavity. The advantage of doing the oral microbiome, I'm learning right now, is that you begin to understand that a lot of the disease causing bacteria is actually originating from the oral cavity. Correct. So you mentioned about Fusobacterium nucleatum when we're talking about colorectal cancer. There is a thought now that it is actually coming from the oral cavity to the gut, and that's how it is causing it. There have been research where they clearly prove that you can predict pancreatic cancer just by looking at the oral microbiome. Where is the pancreas? Where is the oral cavity? As in,
Crazy.
crazy stuff. How signals are getting transmitted from one part of the body to the other part of the body, kind of a thing. And I think now there's a lot of focus on cardiovascular disease and the oral microbiome. But more importantly, I think dentists are now beginning to understand that of the dental problems and oral solutions that are available can be understood better when you do the oral microbiome.
Yes.
When you understand what kind of organisms that are residing over there, and hence there's a lot more research that's coming on over there. We've done one study on diabetes patient, the oral microbiome of diabetes patient with COVID and without COVID. I think it was
That got published, right?
that got published. I mean, it was done in collaboration with Xiome Life Sciences, and they published the paper.
Yes.
So that was pretty good insight that was coming from the Indian oral microbiome scenario. I think in the coming years, oral microbiome will play a huge role. It may be, if we collect a lot of data, maybe 5 years down the line, oral can give a snapshot of what's happening in the gut. Right now, there are talks about it, but I think we should get some credible correlations in a few years time. And the importance of oral hygiene is also coming to.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised if there are going to be probiotic toothpaste and mouthwashes that's going to hit the market. So
One thing, since we are talking about the oral microbiome, one thing I think you should also tell the audience is not to use the mouthwash left, right, and center, because it completely destroys the oral microbiome ecosystem.
yes. I mean, any kind of thing that kills the bacteria, kills any specific bacteria, is probably harmful. There's a very thin line between infectious disease and having a good balanced microbiome. So you have to be very careful about what you're disturbing and where. But talking about and mouthwashes and all of that, let's get on to the most exciting topic.
Yeah.
Probably the furthest away from us researchers, but the skin microbiome. And my pet peeve has always been with all the use of hand sanitizers, we're just killing everything that is there, and that is actually going to lead to a lot of chronic disease in the future. But here about skin microbiome.
Yeah. Again, skin microbiome. See, skin also is a repertoire of organisms we can't see, but there are organisms on our skin which is kind of making us, keeping us healthy. If we use too much of harsh cleaning reagents such as hand sanitizers and stuff, they tend to create a dysbiosis on the skin, which can lead to a lot of issues. Talking about skin microbiome, Kumar, we are going to launch a skin microbiome test very soon, and we could have done that 5 years, not 5 years back, at least 2 years back. The reason we took so much time and still taking so much time to bring the test out is not the technology, but we want to make a report which is actionable. And I think that's where we had taken so much pain in translating whatever little is known in the skin microbiome and translating that to something which the audience or the customer or the consumer is going to use. So skin microbiome, if you compare the oral and the gut, it comes in the third category in terms of the research that has taken place. Of course, gut microbiome is the most researched microbiome, niche that has happened, followed by oral microbiome, and then the skin microbiome maybe. So there are many diseases. Some of the skin diseases like atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, eczema, acne, pimples. People have shown association of different microorganisms with these diseases. Again, the research is naive. Association and links are two different things, but we are heading there. At least in the pimple acne domain, we know that there are bacteria like Cutibacterium acnes. They cause these kind of ailments or diseases on the skin. So, so that is very exciting. This domain, the skin microbiome part. Again, the research is, as I said, in the ladder is the third ladder. But now that we are into it, we will be adding much more research data to the whole domain. And a very interesting, one thought I want to leave it with. People suggest that skin microbiome can be used to profile a person. It's as good as your fingerprint. So that is also something that we are going to work on, and hopefully we will be able to crack some interesting stuff there as well. So yeah, so skin is exciting. I think another advantage working with skin is that it is non-invasive and the yuck factor is not there. Like with the gut microbiome, because you're handling the poop and all, so there is a yuck factor. But skin, you have to just take a swab, and that's about it. So we're very excited about the skin microbiome, and since we are talking about the skin, the last microbiome niche that we should talk about is the vaginal microbiome. Again, not too much is talked about because of the word vaginal, but I think that plays a very important. And you touched upon its role in the reproductive health as well. But if you can give some more insights on the vaginal microbiome and our kind of role in this particular space.
With both skin and vaginal microbiome, what really stumped me was, I think, personally, I feel that we came in with the arrogance of conquering gut into skin and vaginal, and it really taught us a lesson, saying that all these environments are very, very different, and what is logical in gut need not be logically over here. In gut, diversity matters. In vaginal microbiome, diversity is actually bad, and so these are some of the insights that are coming out over here. Again, microbes in any area play a very important role. They interact continuously with the cells around it, and again enable either disease progression or helping us stay healthy. So the vaginal microbiome is very similar to that. From any kind of urinary tract kind of diseases to pregnancy, it plays a huge role. We are beginning to understand it, and the reason I'm saying we're beginning to understand it is because we're now saying that the Indian or the subcontinent vaginal microbiome composition seems to be slightly different from what we're seeing from the Western data. This is also something that we've seen in the gut microbiome as well. It is not only bacteria. There's a lot of fungal species that are also emerging. So, when it comes to vaginal microbiome, bacterial vaginosis is mostly talked about, but there's also a fungal component to it, which can cause problems. So, those are also coming about in this. And lastly, in the vaginal microbiome, I mean, even during pregnancy, if it is a natural birth, it's coming, the baby's delivered through the birth canal. And I think the microbiome in the birth canal is also playing a huge impact in the offsprings in the baby's microbiome. And if it's a cesarean, I think the skin microbiome also influences over there. So taking care of all these microbiome of all these areas are very important. I've been telling the team, I mean, yes, we're covering all these organs, but why are you leaving the men alone? I mean, what about the PMS microbiome? Is there something to it? And I still haven't got an answer, but we should be looking into all these kind of different microbiomes. I mean, for example, we might get a project where we're looking at the lung microbiome, but it's not the lung microbiome alone. Though when the lung microbiome sample is being taken out, it's touching the skin. So the researchers want to minus the skin microbiome from the lung microbiome. I don't know how we're going to pull us this project, but this is something interesting that could be.
Now, interestingly, Kumar, I think also we got a very interesting project about ocular microbiome.
Yeah.
Right. And that is something which is very unique. I don't think a lot of companies on whatever company, even researchers are working in that domain. I think the nostril microbiome can be also a very interesting thing. Because that's the gateway of all the organisms going in your system, right? One is your mouth, second one is your nose. And in COVID also there were a lot of research on the organisms on the nostril which can play a role. So I think we should, if not others, let's start working on the nostril microbiome and see if we can find some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I think we're looking. Nostril is one thing. Hair scalp is one thing. Armpit is one thing. So these are other interesting areas that we're also looking at, and where a lot of microbiome science is now shifting towards. Lastly, we talked about the gut-brain axis. Very controversial question. Does the brain have a microbiome?
Okay, so there was one research very recent that they found certain organisms in the brain hitherto considered to be sterile. So I would say the jury is out there, because just based on one research paper, we should not jump into conclusion. But let's see. I mean, the jury is out there for that.
Correct. I mean, I think that paper divided the researchers as well. I mean, saying the microbiome is from the kit and not from the brain, and the other half saying that it is actually from the brain. So that was our episode on microbiome and diseases. We also touched upon other microbiome ecosystems within our own body. In the next episode, we'll have a very special guest talking about microbiome and nutrition. So see you all next week. Thank you.